I'd rather create something that others criticise than create nothing and criticise others.
If you have high quality product behind the bar, it's like a weapon.
It's not about the figures, it's about who those figures are.
The Hospodpreneurs Podcast.
I'm going to drink this beer.
Yeah, let's crack them.
With James Henderson. Hello and welcome to episode 31 of the Hospodpreneurs Podcast. Our chat with Ella Golding opens dialogue on social media and influencer marketing, trends and observations, and how to take advantage of them. As you know, I love thinking about the cogs behind our hedonistic nature, and this episode delivers on some of that subtle commentary of the human condition. Learning to look through an objective lens will help shape the brand that you want to project, personally and professionally. And today we look at this idea conceptually and technically. I hope you enjoy. Hello and welcome to the show, Ella.
Hello, thank you for having me.
No worries at all. Ella, I like to start the show by asking if you have a crazy hospitality story. Something, it doesn't have to be about you. A lot of people jump to their own stories, but I want to know maybe something funny, exciting, interesting that you've seen a patron do when you're in the bar.
What I do love seeing is now in the whole bar scene, the use of fire and smoke is becoming really big with all the whiskey and things like that. And when you have people at a bar getting very excited about that, it might be, might not be intoxicated, but it can be a dangerous situation. So I have been in a few bars where everyone's crowding around watching, they're doing the pyrotechnics of the whole thing for show, and people, getting a bit close. It's very funny to see sometimes the looks on people's faces when they don't realise that it's going to be this big, fire explosion or this big smoke puff will go off. So I love seeing things like that, and sometimes it can be funny to see people's reactions. Eyebrows. Yeah, you never know because of the mystery of it.
Oh, gee.
And it tastes even better at the end because there's a little bit of a story involved watching it get made. So,
it's more about, your story here is more about the excitement of those interesting techniques that I suppose happen in hospitality.
Yeah, well, I'm all about the experience behind what you're eating and the venue where you are, and that includes the techniques and the expertise of the staff and the bartenders. I find that very interesting whenever I go to a venue. I love to meet everyone and hear about their story, because some people have this incredible background and things that you just don't even know about, and that's what makes a venue great.
Yes, I really like that, and it leads us into actually my next question for you, which is, why do you do what you do?
Well, I've always been very passionate about food and the experience and the whole thing of eating and how it brings people together, and the whole experience of it, how it can be this thing that takes you into another world. It's all about sensations, the senses, and bringing all those things together at once, and it all happening is really, really amazing experience. So I've always been really passionate in that way with the whole details of a venue and things like that, because I love seeing when I'm walking into a venue, the excitement I get when visually it's amazing, it smells amazing, the people are amazing, the vibe is amazing, something like that. When a moment like that comes together is really special, and I've always been very excited by that. So I've kind of pursued finding and sharing moments like that to other people, because I want to share those things and inspire other people to go and seek finding those things.
I really like that, and I think we're going to open that up a little bit more over the episode. I've got a thread that I want to open up a little bit later around that. My next question I want to ask you is, how do you describe what it is that you do? Well,
it's funny because I do a lot of different things, but predominantly what we're talking about here is my food blogging side. So this really is only just started to take off a lot in the last probably 8 months, but I've always been at events and really loved experiencing the catering and all that kind of side, but I've really gone more into restaurants and venues in the last year or so. So on the food side of things, I would say that because I specialise in fashion and lifestyle, what I do is I go into a venue, or I collaborate with a venue as a content creator, but also as a way of sharing their venue to my followers who are interested in, finding those amazing experiences. So I would say I'm a food blogger, but it's a bit of an alternative on the lifestyle side of things, because I'm sharing the whole venue, not just the plate of food, which is why certain venues love having me, because they invest in everything around what you're eating. It's the venue, it's the staff, it's the interiors, it's the music that's playing, whatever makes those moments special. So I would say I'm more like, it could be a venue blogger, because I'm really extending the passion into every aspect of what a venue brings to the table.
Yes, and you mentioned there that experience is really something that drives you.
Yeah.
and what you're providing is about that experience, not just a product that the venue's supplying.
Yeah.
So we're going to open that up a little bit more, but what I want to ask is how you got into that and what your background is and sort of what led you into doing what you do now.
Well, I've always worked in fashion because my parents were in the industry, and I'm lucky that I took to it very young. So I was always working with them when I was a kid, which, you know, could have been backstage at fashion parades or on shoots or at events. So about probably 13 years of age, I started going to events with my mum. And I remember one week I went to 3, and that was one was a bar opening, and I was obviously underage, but I'd go along and have the food, and then there was this top catering company, and they'd catered every night. And my mum realised after that I had discovered catering and that I could just survive on purely catering every night for dinner. And then she knew that she'd created Monster, because now that's what I do every week, and I love it still. So that was, 10 years of I've been going to events since I was really young. So I really discovered like my passion for food and fashion and everything through working with my parents. And then I obviously pursued, once I finished school, on my own more. So I was actually a model agent at Vivian's Models, so I was going to events all the time for things like that. I've always been in events, but I really love that has taken me to more sitting in the venues and a more relaxed experience. Yeah, and it always was going to launches and working with bars on promotions and things like that. And then ever since then, I've just started working more in the industry and more directly with clients.
Something that we discussed when we caught up recently was about seeing how the cogs work in the back end.
Yeah.
And that's what really interests me about the industry. And that's why I sound crazy when I say this, unless someone else, and all our listeners are obviously passionate hospitality professionals, but I sound crazy when I say that I would rather work a lot of the time than party, because I just enjoy seeing the system for what it is. That was something that we talked about last time.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, I've always been behind the scenes, but I've always had some little spotlights out, onto the front of things and more as a face. And that's what I do now. I work more as I put a face to it through whether it's social media or anything like that. But so I'm kind of working on two sides of it. And I mean, some people go, oh, wouldn't it be nice to just go and have a dinner and not take a photo or not, but anywhere I go, it's what I'm passionate about, whether I'm working or not. I'm always inquisitive about it. So that's how, for me, it's not work. I just love it. And that's very interesting, because I prefer to see the behind the scenes, because I find that very interesting. And you really appreciate what effort goes into what the experience that you're having, like there again, like the experience. So I really love learning about that.
Yes. You'd be considered a micro-influencer.
Yes.
Yeah? How can you tell us a bit about what that is and how you become one?
Because I've been doing it for a while, and I mean, Instagram and social media is such a changing platform at the moment that since the beginning, I mean, there's always been like the Instagram famous, but they have their purpose, but there's always been this gap that now for businesses, because social media is so important, I've kind of fallen into this micro-influencer group because I work as a content creator and I work really, really closely with brands, and I really care about that. And as a micro-influencer, you have more of a direct way of connecting with the brand and sharing your experience in a genuine way to your followers, and they really follow that. So a micro-influencer is someone who probably does a bit of content creation, so supplies files after the whatever they're doing to the company, and the company can use them then for social media. So we really are working on the ground as like more a marketing content role, but through social media. But I think brands are appreciating smaller influencers because we have a more unique voice, and what we're sharing is really, really important to the people that follow us. It's not just this big shout out that we're putting once on our profile, we're really genuinely sharing it. So it's becoming definitely a movement, and I see now big brands would rather work with 50 smaller influencers than one big one, because they're getting more out of it.
I suppose the logistics of that would be quite difficult for a venue as well.
Yeah.
So to have a centralized place to contact a lot of those influencers. And I guess that's a bit about what you do as well. But this concept of micro-influencers, you said, is a bit of a movement that's happened internationally. And for anyone who isn't as clued up on the marketing scene and marketing technology, or terminology rather, not technology, and technology with social media internationally, this is a real movement that's taken place. What I want to articulate more is that hospitality professionals can do sort of around what you're doing. Like they can create a brand for themselves and market what they do, and everyone can do this. Everyone can create their own brand. What I sort of want to discuss here is I want to ask you, how could hospitality professionals leverage their brand and create a name for themselves?
Yeah, that's really interesting. Well, I mean, it's very obvious that these days people, before they eat somewhere, are looking it up on social media to see how they feel about it and to connect with the brand before maybe they even go and eat there. So it's starting before, the whole experience is starting from before they even get to the venue. So for someone like me, if I went onto Instagram and looked up a venue and they had tagged the chef or the bartender and I pressed their name and went onto their profile, it's really interesting because I have done that before, and it's been, the bartender has obviously tried to start their own personal page and they have pictures of their drinks and they have been creating their own content and putting up. I think it's definitely like value added to the venues and them as an employee or a bartender. I mean, it's basically like having your resume on a visual platform. So whether you're working somewhere and people search you that way, or for future employers, or for just building a portfolio. So you're showing people what you can do. And I think in any profession these days, it's like having a LinkedIn. That's what Instagram is. It's like your business card. So the more people you can show that to as a hospitality professional and have value added to what you do, that's very important. I mean, if you're passionate about it and you love sharing what you do, it's just going to come naturally, and you've just got to figure out how to do that through social media. Yeah.
I think that moving forward in that, it's just looking a little bit further forward, people will be hired based on their reach on Instagram, on Facebook, social media. People like hospitality professionals, if they can draw a crowd, if they draw an audience through their social media channels, venues will want them.
Yeah, well, I mean, if there was a bartender that I'd maybe been to another venue before and I knew who they were, and then I saw they were somewhere else, I'd go and visit because I know that's what they do, and I've seen and I can follow where they're moving or what they're doing. And I think also for a lot of bartenders who are maybe representing also certain types of spirits or trying to promote new brands on the market, it's really, really great because they can create content with new spirits that they're working with and new brands and share what they're passionate about doing in their space as a bartender or a waitress or whatever it is. There's so many possibilities with having your own platform with how you can share it, but I'd definitely go to a venue if I knew that someone special was there, and if I was an employer, I think that would be very important. Yeah, you can definitely make yourself an attraction, I think.
Yes, it's around service and entertainment, and there are so many things we've discussed in previous episodes, and the reason I wanted to bring up this question in this episode is because obviously social media is your expertise, social media marketing and influencer marketing and partnerships on that front, but also that my next episode coming up is also with someone who's done that. He's built a brand as a bartender. He now has a brand, leverages that brand, and now he's become a bit of a brand ambassador, and he's actually educating other hospitality professionals on how to build their personal brands. So I'm really excited for that episode coming up next week. But I want to ask you, let's go back to more of the technical aspect of social media marketing, and what is a good post?
Well, I think it's difficult at the moment because things are changing a bit, and the whole new algorithm has really changed what Instagram thinks is a good post. But I think personally, a good post for me is something that's genuine. Visually, it's unique. It doesn't look the same as what everyone else is doing, and it's sharing something that is true. I mean, it's a message that is true and something interesting. So I really like seeing posts that have a little bit of detail. They're not too sales, like as sometimes I think posts don't go well because they're too focused on pushing a product. I think you've got to definitely add a more human aspect to it and a more of a voice. So I think that's, for me, a good post for a venue is something that just shows what they do. It's clearly captioned and it makes you want to go there. So it's something that's appetizing or something that's, visually just makes you go, wow. There's got to be definitely emotion put into a good post.
Yes, and we are discussing it on a very abstract level as well. We're not talking about a specific post.
No, well, I mean, it could be anything, but that's the general aesthetic of a good post would be that.
What process do you take when you're crafting a post? Is there a process that you take?
It's changed pretty rapidly recently because I am doing content creation. So generally when I put up an image, there could be 10 good ones and I've picked one, or that I usually pick, one that I feel like is the best image or shows what I've been doing in the best way. I definitely have a unique style, but I try to stick through that. So if I feel like it's not really with my normal my normal style. I just try and be as true as I can to myself. But yeah, it's definitely a process. I always obviously have to make sure that I'm mentioning all the brands and whatever business-wise that I have to be doing for that post to make sure that I'm doing that properly as per the business agreement. But my number one aim is to be true to what my style is and what I want to share.
Can you tell us about that style? You said your style's unique.
There's a lot of people obviously on social media that might not think that my style is unique, but I definitely have like a more glamorous, more I mean, that's what I try to do anyway, but I definitely try to capture like a moment or I mean, when I'm eating somewhere and I'm promoting a venue or working with a venue, I try and get as much of the venue in as I can and definitely add that fashion or glamorous element to it. I think if you look at my post, you can always see that there's my fashion background's always coming through or my creative background's always coming through. Yeah, so I think my style is definitely more creative and more that glamorous or high-end vibe to it.
And that you said that creative background. I want to explore that creative process of yours. What do you do to even get into a creative mindset or explore the ideas that might come about in that creative state?
Well, I definitely I've always been someone who collects inspirational images. So, I mean, when I was younger, I was on Tumblr and I'd have folders and folders of photos that I loved. And I mean, now I'm more busy, but I do try to every week, like when I'm on Instagram, I'm always saving images that I like that I think, you know, maybe I want to get, you know, inspirational. There's an emotion to the image that I really liked. And I'm on Pinterest, so I'm always saving things there. I mean, when I'm planning an image, if I know I've got to go to a certain place and I've got to create something, I always try and have a set of inspiration images to try and replicate and kind of direct my vision to somewhere, because I think it's too broad, I just try and focus on, I want it to look like this, or I want this to be the vibe of what the picture I'm taking is. Yeah, so it's definitely a process, and when I'm busier, it's more rushed, but when I have more time or it's a big project I'm working on, I do work a lot on the inspiration and trying to replicate a certain emotion into the posts or the photos that I'm taking. And
what you described there, and a lot of the words you use, and obviously coming from a fashion background, it's very visual for you. It's a very visual experience. Yeah. Just I can hear from the words you're using and the way you describe it. For me, it's auditory, and that's why I do a podcast, and that's why music is my creative outlet. It's interesting exploring those creative differences, but the actual way of creating in our minds is still an open state. It's an open mode and a way of thinking. I'd like to open that up, and I've tried recently, over the last few episodes, I've tried to explore that a bit more with some of my guests. If that comes up throughout the episode, let us know, because I'd love to explore that. Who taught you the skills that you use when you're in business now?
Well, it's interesting because I haven't been to university, so there's a lot of people who do work experience when they're at university. I was on my first shoot when I was 10 days old, so from the time whenever I can remember, I've probably been with my parents. This is the fashion background coming through, which is visual. I know everything that comes, what it takes to make the perfect shot. My dad was a fashion photographer. My mum was a stylist. She did hair and makeup. I know every single element that goes into a shoot. So for me, when I'm putting together an image, I think that probably comes through because I've got the earrings on, I've got something styled, but I'm always thinking about what the background looks like. So for me, it's like I think I grew up on shoots and I loved that whole process. That's what I do for myself now, you know. And that's, you know, I plan it, I do it. And I've seen my mum do the process, you know, growing up. And then now I think that's what I really enjoy is I really love creating the image and planning that and having all those elements come together. So I think it's probably where all of that came from. But yeah, I've learnt everything visually because I've watched, you know, my dad being a fashion photographer. I've been on shoots and seeing him how everything needs to be perfect or how everything goes to make a perfect image. Yes. So I think there's always that element of, I'm definitely a perfectionist as well, so that doesn't help. But that's where it all comes together. Yeah. I mean, I've spent, that's where I've learned it from because I was really passionate about it very young. What can venues do to be more effective with their social media? Well, it's very interesting because I mean, if I see a venue that I think is great and it hasn't got a social media presence, I always try and ask them about, you know, what are you doing? I mean, some places are so good that they don't really need to do anything. They're such an institution but in saying that you need to get your voice out to new people. You can't rely on word of mouth as times are moving so quickly. There's some venues that are just trying their best. They're putting up pictures of their food. They're trying to describe their new menu items or what they've got going on and specials. And I think that's great because it is like your business card now. I mean, anywhere that I eat, I will not eat anywhere really unless I've looked it up beforehand. And my mum does that. You know, all generations are doing now. It's not just young people. I'll go to Instagram before I go to any other reviewing page, really. I mean, there's Zomato and things like that and all those platforms, but Instagram is the visual thing for me, and that's where I see the food and what's happening. Yeah, so I think venues definitely just need to, I mean, whether you go and you seek advice from someone like a professional like me or, you know, a company or a friend or something, it's definitely worth starting, if you haven't already, to get on it, because you might be missing out on customers who haven't been able to find you properly.
So how can venues think about even the posting or connecting with their audience better?
I think with venues that I see already have social media, it works really well when they, I mean, food is really, and things that people enjoy like food and drinks, is quite easy to promote because it's, everyone loves it. But it's definitely, there's a way that you've got to do it to keep the momentum. So I see a lot of venues, you know, they have special, they advertise things like that on their page, or they're getting influencers to come in and help them to create content as well, which is really interesting. Yeah, there's definitely, I think they've got to keep the momentum going in some way, whether it's new specials or the content has to, obviously the food has to look great, or whatever you're promoting has to look great. So it's got to be high quality images, definitely.
There will be some listeners out there who maybe they have a cafe, a bar, restaurant. They'll be posting and they'll be in that group you described where they're posting, they're on social media, but they're wondering why they're not getting as much engagement, and maybe people are looking them up, but they don't have that spark or that pizzazz that they need. Yeah. How can they find what it is that they need to be posting about?
Well, I think it's really interesting. If you're a venue who's in that situation, I would probably recommend trying to get some type of food bloggers in, because it's really interesting when you get other people who are visual into your venue and how they share your food, and seeing how they share your food and what the reaction is on their page and the way they might style their image. It's really interesting. I think that's a really great way of getting feedback on maybe what you're not doing right. Because if they're a successful food blogger and they post an image and it goes really well, then what aren't you doing that's making your page not go off all the time?
Yes.
So, but I think as soon as I see a venue that has all the good social media things going on, I see a lot of food bloggers there, I've seen, you know, a few influencers, social people there. As soon as I see that, I'm like, okay, they're doing something right. They're getting the word out there. I mean, you've really got to, if you're opening a venue or you're relaunching or you're just trying to make your page stand out, it is, I think, definitely about trying to connect with other accounts and other people to share their take on your venue and then work. You definitely get a lot of feedback from that, I think.
What about someone who maybe they own a venue and they're deciding between promoting their personal page or their business page?
So are you saying like maybe a chef or a business owner? I've seen a few pages where they tag the chef in the post or the owner, but I think it depends what kind of venue. I mean, if you're a well-known chef or a well-known restaurateur or a venue owner, then that can be really successful because you can have all your venues or all your things under your name. But I think definitely having your business name and having your page is really important to have like strong branding for your venue.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I think there's a person and then there's a venue. You can have two accounts, but the venue needs to have that strong image.
Yes, okay. So it still needs to exist anyway. And
yeah,
it needs to be strong.
I think so, yeah.
You go to an incredible number of events, and when we first caught up, I realized how much that's taught you about events. You articulated even what's going to be happening at different times throughout an event. You just know because you've gone to so many. I'm particularly interested in this next thread because, as our listeners know about the City Bushduff, the event that I started, I'd love to hear more about your experience with events. So, how do you find is the best way to reach to target and reach a particular demographic that you're looking for online that you want to come along to an event?
If you're doing it online, I mean, I haven't personally, I help people promote events, so they'll ask me, hey, can you post about this event, and that because they know it suits me, so whether I, you know, maybe it's something that, you know, that suits what I usually do, that type of event, but getting the word out about an event online, I usually see it being done with them picking a few influencers and getting them to write, like, put up a post about it or a Instagram story about it.
In the
I get
demographic
asked,
that
yeah,
they're
I get
looking
asked to do
for.
that a lot. Yeah, so if say it's a more of a young type of event, I think that Instagram's really good for that and getting a few people that are in that demographic to post about it. If it's more of a upmarket, probably a higher age demographic event, Facebook's really good because that demographic is really active on Facebook. But also websites like Urban List and those type of websites, a lot of people follow those for what events are coming up. They're really big. So whenever I see an event on Facebook or something, there's generally sometimes an article or some form of press that's come up about it. So that is all age demographics because I follow that, but my parents or older demographic follow those kind of things as well if that's what they're interested in.
How do you find the influencer for the particular demographic that you want?
Yeah, well, it's difficult. It can be hit and miss as well because there's so many variables involved. It actually depends on, obviously, the influencer and whether they do a good job of it or not as well. But, I mean, I'm being employed because I am on Instagram all the time and I know what every influencer is doing. You know, I follow that and that's what my expertise is and my personal knowledge. I put a lot of time into that. So brands are now coming to me and saying, okay, you obviously know what's going on. Who is there? And it's hard for brands who aren't on Instagram all the time to know who to pick or know even where to begin. And sometimes I'm going, I need someone who's this or has this type of style, and sometimes I find it hard and I'm on it all the time. So I can't imagine obviously venues that are coming to me and they're saying, we have no idea where to begin. So it is very hard. You definitely, if you really think you have no idea and you don't even know where to begin, you probably do need to try and talk to someone about it. It's not, it's not a pricey thing. If you want to just go to a company and say that might have an idea about it, or a friend, like there's hopefully someone you know could direct you to maybe someone they know, but I think it's difficult, and I think that's where some of these influencer agencies and things like that are popping up because people are confused about where to begin with it. And also, even once you begin with it, getting the return on your investment or getting the influencer to actually do the right thing by your brand or your venue, it's, there's so many variables. But I think that's what I put a lot of time and energy into, making sure that I can engage influencers on behalf of a client and get the best return on the investment. So it's hard. It is hard. It's all changing so fast. I mean, I don't know how to keep up with it sometimes.
And you're doing it. You're in the trenches.
I know.
A step beyond just finding those influencers and connecting with those influencers is obviously converting whatever it is that the business is trying to convert and whatever it is that they're trying to sell. Maybe they're looking to just be seen and get eyeballs on their brand, or maybe they're looking for foot traffic or to sell a particular product. How do you get... let's stick with events, because rather than staying too abstract and broad, for an event, how would a brand make sure that the people that they're marketing to through influencers are actually converting?
I think that you have to go with people who are genuine. I think that's why the micro-influencer thing is so big, because they're the people that are sharing unique passions and a genuine voice.
Yes.
So you could go in... I mean, some people will still do a variety of things, but I think with events, so they might get someone who has a large following to post about it, but what filters down from that might not be the right demographic, so they might not even have any reaction. But someone who's smaller, who's local, who's in your area, or has the same style of event, like their style is similar to the event that you're putting on. So say you're putting on a champagne high tea, then you probably go with an influencer that's a bit more feminine, is in your local area and looks to be like their followers would appreciate that. So I mean, that's hard for someone who doesn't quite know to find. Picking small influencers who are really passionate, I think you get way more from that rather than picking bigger influencers. I mean, working personally as an influencer engager, I'm picking smaller people because I know they're going to do the right thing, and I know that they really want to know about the brand or the event, and they will try and share it in the most unique way they can because they want their followers to enjoy their content. I think that's my number one tip. I'm really, really, really passionate about the micro-influencer thing because I think they're doing the best for uniquely sharing to the exact demographic that you think they are. Like, they're doing that really, really well.
And obviously it's people like yourself who stay on top of that and connect with those people in all kinds of regions. Obviously, you know the market where you operate the best, but there will be people around who you connect with, or there's potentially agencies and other options that businesses can go with. I'm just trying to help our listeners find
I mean, I'm
what to do.
kind of baffled right now trying to think about it because I can't imagine it's it is a very daunting time for venue owners
Yes.
who are maybe seeing other venues getting ahead because of this social media thing, and they know they have something exactly of equal value or even better value to share, and it can be very stressful, and that's why like my passion is really help. And even if it's a client or I'm going into a cafe, like I'm trying to help them because I know it's very daunting.
Yes.
And I mean, I wouldn't know where to begin if I wasn't doing it. Yeah, I think definitely if you have no idea, you need to be talking to someone who you think might have an idea. Like, if there's many people you can talk to about, do you know, or even, you know, your friend's daughter who might be on Instagram, you know, they're all on it. If anyone you can ask who, I mean, yes, the younger demographic is very into it, so try and find someone that you can ask. If you
in the
can't,
market that they're looking for.
in the market. I mean, I have people asking my mum to ask me about who they should ask or what they should do. I mean, it's filtering down. People are trying to look for where to get advice from. So even just ringing up, if you don't know, like try and find a local marketing company and maybe just ring up and say, how do I go about this? You know, some of them, if you might be willing to help, or you might not get anything back from that, but yeah, it's very daunting. I'm thinking it's a bit of a scary time for people. Yeah.
I'm going to move on to the next question, but on that note though, if you're listening at home and you want to explore that and you don't know where to look, I'm happy to try to connect you with someone that I know, or if it's with Ella or someone else who might be able to help you near you. It's not what I do. I obviously run the podcast. I do lots of other things in the industry, but happy to try to do my best. So reach out to me and I'll do what I can. The next question I'd like to ask you, Ella, is what are you learning about or exploring at the moment?
I'm really learning because it's been so busy the last few months and things have been going really well for me in that area of business that I'm doing, the influencer type thing. I'm really learning that I'm the kind of person who always giving, and I always want to help everyone. I always go to every event. Like I can't even tell you how many I've been to in my life yet, let alone this year. I'm always doing everything, and I think that's my personality, but I'm trying to separate my personality and my business. And I think next year I'm going to try and be a bit more exclusive and spend more energy on things that really, really, really suit my brand, rather than trying to do everything.
Yes.
Which I love because I'm passionate about it and I enjoy it. But I need to, business-wise, start reining it in a bit and really focusing.
Saying no.
Yeah, and saying no. Yeah, so, yeah, it's hard because I get FOMO and I think I'm missing out, or I can't say I'm an expert on food or I'm an expert on this if I don't go to everything. But there's some times where I just think, you know what, I just need to give myself a bit of a break. And, you know.
I totally understand that.
That's what I'm learning at the moment, and I think next year that's definitely a goal for me, and I just need to focus on exactly what works.
I like that. Where are you pushing things or innovating?
Well, I definitely think my role recently as a content creator, so when I say that is when I'm sharing something on Instagram, one image, say I've stayed at a hotel or I've eaten at a restaurant, there's that one image, then there might be 3 videos and 5 story posts on my story that I work hard on making sure look good, and then the venue gets all the other photos I've taken, so that might be 20 photos, and they get that in a Dropbox, and a lot of people aren't seeing that that's what I'm doing, but that brands who I present my proposal to when they ask for it and that see that are telling me, wow, we didn't know that's how it worked, we really value that. So that's where I think venues and brands are realizing, well, we can actually get our content created from people like me or other content creators. So that's something that I've been really pushing recently, because I love creating visual imagery and I always have, and I think that brands are really valuing what I'm giving to them in that way.
What innovations or innovative techniques have you seen take place in the industry while you've been working in it?
Well, in terms of social media, I'm always seeing there's always new apps or things like that, or if I'm watching an Instagram story and I see someone has created something a bit more visual, a bit more creative. I mean, I've seen some people doing different things with video and all these things and go, wow, that's really unique. I mean, Instagram's trying to keep up. They're introducing all these new things that I can see they've done because they are watching the trends their users are creating.
Yes.
So it's really interesting trying to keep up with all that. And I feel like Instagram is developing at the rate we're all trying to with creating our own content. It's really, I actually think they're doing a great job, even though the algorithm is annoying everyone at the moment since all those changes have happened. But I think innovation wise, they're trying to keep up with how people are wanting to share. And that's really interesting because they're creating new ways for us to share what we want. And they're trying to keep up with new ways we're creating. Yeah, so it's interesting. It's this give or take thing that's happening.
What innovations are taking place right now?
Specifically? I definitely think that video is obviously really big at the moment, and that's a way of sharing that venues and events and things they're always trying to add that. I mean, a photo is great. A photo, tells 1,000 stories, but a video is what really shows what's happening. So I've been trying to do a bit more video, whether it's on my page or things like that. But I mean, vloggers and people doing video are rapidly, gaining interest because they're sharing more of a voice. It's all about that voice, like sharing as much as you can. And video, you can do that, or talking like we are now is such a... So I think the innovation is definitely people creating something in movement and video.
It's interesting that you said they're a voice, but the voice is auditory as well.
Yeah.
So it's some sort of creating a channel.
Yeah.
It's a channel in a way.
I mean, you can just share so many more things through a moving image or a voice, like audio. And
ultimately, really, people could create a podcast. A venue could create a podcast, really, if they wanted to. Yeah. And I'm more than happy to help them with that too.
Yeah, definitely.
But what changes do you want to see take place in the industry?
In the future, I think, and it's happening at the moment, is supporting micro-influencers, because it's all about sharing your unique voice. I've seen the movement happen from people supporting and sharing with large style Instagram famous influencers, and it's just not seeing exactly what they want back from that. So the movement that I would love to see is people supporting the smaller people and the unique voice that they're sharing, because you have to stand out on Instagram, and that's the best way to do it, I think, and brands are really, really noticing that.
What are you doing to make that happen?
Well, I think when a client is employing me to give them advice on influencers and do that whole process for them, I really try and only use people who I know are genuine, who haven't bought their followers or are really just doing their own thing. And you can tell quite easily who maybe their account's a bit inflated, maybe something's happening there. But I just want to see people who are creating really amazing content. And that's where the content creator and the micro influencer thing comes in, because I'm trying to just use people like that so that the movement and those people are recognised on what they're doing. Yeah,
I really like that.
Yeah.
What's your number one industry resource?
Instagram.
Yeah.
I'm on it, like whether it's following the agencies that the other marketing agencies or venues, or I mean, if I miss a few hours on there, I'd guarantee I've missed something important, and so I'm on it all the time, because I always am learning things, and that's how I'm keeping up with it all. You've just got to be on it all the time.
How do you operate?
Yeah,
how do you eat? You can take a photo while you're eating. How do you do everything else? Like, how do you get everything else done?
Well, it is my job, and I think I've struggled in the past with separating. I mean, social media follows you everywhere. You can't really get away from it, and your phone's always there. So I try and have shut-off times, like at night, I turn my phone off or things like that. For me, personally, I don't want to get too much of everyone else in front of me all the time. I think it's really important to keep your, tunnel vision sometimes when you're just, especially with you're trying to just build your own brand. You can't be comparing yourself too much. So I think I try to keep away from it, because you've got to be able to keep your unique vision.
So it's like on time and off time.
Yeah, I've really had to learn that, but I'm looking forward to holidays.
I'm a massive advocate of on time and off time.
But even on holidays, I'll still be taking pictures of everything. So it just shows then that I really do love it.
I've only got a couple of questions left for you. The next one I want to ask you is, if someone wants to do what you do, what advice do you have for them?
I just think that you've really just got to be true to yourself. I see a lot of people trying to be like everyone else because they think that that's what is popular, but I really value someone who's just trying to be themselves and is not ashamed to just be themselves. And I think if you're starting off in what I'm doing, whether you're in any way of life, whether you're being in marketing like me or in or an influencer, people are going to value you if you have your own style and don't try and be like everyone else. That's my number one advice. I think that's going to get you further in everything you do if you're just true to yourself. And to find your style. Yeah, I think. How do people do that? I think for some people it comes very naturally. Like, I think for me, I definitely have a style that I always go back to. Whether even if I try to do something else, I feel uncomfortable. I always just do what I love doing. But I think finding your unique style is just making sure that you are, if you love something, share it. If you want to give someone advice, whether if say you're in marketing, and you want to tell a client, this is what I think, you know, don't be afraid to have a voice and have an opinion. And that's how you're going to find your unique style.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you're going to find the way that you want to go about things.
Just to share your opinion in
Yeah,
the way
I
you
think
like to share it.
Yeah. You've definitely... I think I see a lot of people trying to do something because they think that it's working for everyone else. But just try and do your own thing, and you'll get somewhere with that. And it'll be a place that makes you happy because you're being true to yourself. In any job you're doing, whether you're doing marketing, clients will value you if you're unique. In being an influencer, people will value you if you're unique.
We mentioned there before about, or you said sharing an opinion, but it's more than that. It's about sharing value. And I think because people won't listen unless it's valuable.
Mm-hmm.
It's more than just an opinion. So how do people accumulate that value to share?
I think that if you're an influencer and you're wanting to start building your personal value, you've just got to not be afraid to share what you think is interesting to yourself. If you're sharing something that you're by trying to make everyone else happy, that's not going to work either. So I think if you're trying to add value, just going back to it again, you've just got to do what you want to do. You've just got to do you.
Yeah, you do you.
You've got to do you. And that's going to work for you in every way of life, above everything. I'm really believing that. And that's sometimes when I feel like I'm getting a bit swayed by seeing images everywhere that everyone else is doing, and I've always just said to myself, just do you, because that will work for you.
In fact, I was sitting at home thinking about this exact thing last night. You do you. That came up in our conversation that we had when we first caught up. But the quote I was thinking about last night, and this sums up you do you. I won't say who it was by yet because it comes out in the quote. He says, "My mother told me, if you're a soldier, you'll become a general. If you're a monk, you'll become the Pope." And he said, "I was a painter and I became Picasso." So I really like that quote because it sums that up. It's you need to do you. You need to do your brand the way you do it. And but developing that style is something that's hard to find.
Yeah, I think it is, and I can't give anyone advice unless I'm talking to an individual person, but I think the broad advice is you've just got to do you. You've got to put yourself out there in a way that is yourself, because there's no one like you else in the world. So if you're just doing what you're doing in your way, that's going to be unique just from the outset.
I would say try and fail and get engagement, see what engages and doesn't engage
sometimes
people.
I do things and I'm like, that didn't really work. And then I think, was I actually being true to myself there? Did I want to do that? Did I share something that I think was unique? And sometimes when I think it hasn't worked, I can say, no, Ella, you didn't do the right thing there.
Yeah.
And that's why people didn't like it as much, or you felt unhappy with it. So it always comes back to that. If you build on that and you make mistakes, you will find where your direction is, because you'll feel what's not right.
When you build an authentic brand, a genuine brand through you, then people like you and dislike you based on what you share. And if you're being authentic, it's genuinely you.
Yeah, well, it's really hard to put yourself out there. I think social media is very scary if you are wanting to create that unique voice or that authentic voice, because you're putting yourself on the line. You really are sharing yourself and or your venue that you've worked very hard on, or your event that you've put blood, sweat and tears into. And the negative feedback can be a bit daunting, but that's how you're going to find your way. You're going to be like, okay, people didn't like that. What can I learn from that? So it is a learning experience, definitely, and that will guide you.
Yes. And by being genuine, that shows us that it provides explanation as to why when we do something that might be not entirely aligned with who we are, that people won't connect with that, because what we are sharing is who we are.
Yeah, well, sometimes I find if I post something that maybe I was really proud of and I thought was a really great image, and some people might not quite react to it, as well as some of the other ones I put up, and sometimes things like that happen and I go, you know what, I actually just did what I wanted to do there. I'm happy with that. Sometimes you have to it has to go both ways. You have to stay true to yourself and stick to your guns.
Yes.
Sometimes you put something on, people won't like it, but you just got to keep going with it. If that's what you want to do, you have to just keep going with it. People will find you and they will like what you're doing, I promise you.
Ultimately, where do you want to be?
Well, it changes a lot. People ask me that, but right now I see my brand and what I'm working on right now. I definitely want to get to the point where I'm working internationally and sharing, as I was talking about, those experiences from around the world. I want to be working with top hospitality brands all around the world, travel, and all those things that are emotive and our experiences. So I'm definitely more of the food and the fashion all comes together in lifestyle. So I'm definitely wanting to pursue the lifestyle side of things. And I mean, if I can see myself, in Paris working with venues like I do here, and going to different countries and really honing in what I'm passionate about, that's definitely where I see myself going with what's happening now.
Yes.
Yeah, and being a content creator as well for brands, I think that's just going to keep building in value.
This is my final question. What's your next step towards achieving that?
Well, next year's hopefully going to be a very big year. I'm just going to start working with a lot more brands that I think fit my style and what my followers want. So I'm really going to start pursuing that and creating something really unique on my page and really seeking that. I spend a lot of time. I don't wait for people to come to me. I mean, sometimes people come to me, but I really think it's better for me and my unique brand to go after the people and show them what I can bring to their brand and work with them in that way, because then I'm sharing something unique and I'm building that myself. Yeah, being proactive. So next year I'm going to be doing a bit of travel as well, so that will where what I just said with the international thing will come into play. So I mean, I'm going to go over to Europe and really pursue that over there, because I think my style, the whole glamorous fashion thing, is a bit more European. Australia tends to be a bit more beachy and a bit more natural, but so I'm really looking forward to taking it over to somewhere that I can really express myself. Fantastic.
I'm super excited to be part of that journey, to watch you and help you in any way that I can. So thank you very much for being on the show, Ella, and it's been awesome having you on.
Thank you so much.
Stay in touch with the show after hours at Hospopreneurs on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. Do you know a hospopreneur? Shoot us an email, hospopreneurs@gmail.com. Creativity and innovation in hospitality. The Hospopreneurs Podcast with James Henderson.